appreciate that. Chairman Smith, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. Before I begin, I would like to welcome each and every one of the witnesses. I'm particularly grateful to have my former chairman of the committee, Mr. Kevin Brady, back with us after we were able to make some permanent, so many of those successful tax policies that helped out shepherd the law in 2017. It's good to have you with us. The economic expansion and wage growth, particularly for middle and low-income Americans, that followed the passage of the TCJA inspired and it motivated this Congress. It motivated this Congress to build on those policies and enact additional tax relief for working families and for farmers and for small businesses. Now I'd like to say a few words about ongoing Pillar 2 negotiations and the side-by-side agreement as well. I applaud President Trump's leadership that started on day one of his presidency with an executive order designed to stand up for American companies and American workers, which was absolutely lacking in the prior administration. That executive order led to the Trump administration working with Congress to craft retaliatory measures in the One Big Beautiful Bill to protect American companies and workers from attempts to violate American tax sovereignty. I, along with Senate Finance Chairman Mike Crapo, agreed to remove those retaliatory measures from the bill when the G7 publicly stated its intent to move forward with a side-by-side system that respects the U.S. sovereignty. And let me tell you, I intend to see that June announcement through to the finish line. And the time for action is now for those G7 countries. We expect to see the technical work that has been done in these negotiations move forward this week. We have been patient to allow for all negotiating parties to have the space they need to reach agreement, but they must reach agreement soon. As Chairman Crapo and I said in June, and I'll quote what we said in our release, we are committed to restoring Americans' confidence in our representative government by putting America first. Congressional Republicans stand ready to take immediate action if the other parties walk away from this deal or slow walk its implementation. We mean it then, and you betcha, Mr. Chairman, we mean it now. Perhaps one of the less discussed portions of the 2017 Trump tax cuts were the reforms that addressed what was at that time a troubling behavior on the part of American companies to move their headquarters, their capital investment, and jobs overseas, called corporate inversions. Under President Obama from 2009 to 2016, there were 71 such corporate inversions. And following passage of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, we have seen zero inversions, reversing what was a decades-long pattern under the Obama administration. Chairman Brady, thank you. Chairman Brady, how did the reduction in the corporate tax rate to 21% from an uncompetitive 35%, coupled with reforms like the global intangible low-taxed income provision or GILTI, among others, level the playing field for U.S. companies? And at the time of its enactment, were you expecting that American businesses would respond as favorably as that they did and basically in the practice of corporate inversions?
So, Mr. Chairman, first let me congratulate you on the achievement of not just extending and making permanent the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but building on and improving it. I can't imagine what would happen if we saw a cruel $4 trillion of tax hikes on families and Main Street businesses, or if you not take the steps to make America more competitive for our businesses and the jobs it creates here at home. So thank you for that. I also would love to talk more about your role in the OECD and how dangerous a risk that is to the U.S. economy and our businesses. But to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, yes, we did believe that if we got the tax code right, that those inversions would stop. Because the old tax code, you looked at these companies, and I think of those 71, 16 were from Texas, frankly. And it was because the tax code told them to move overseas, or when bought, preference the foreign owner over the U.S. Company. And so that's why we saw that sucking sound leaving the U.S. In all the economic damage that it did. Lowering the corporate rate, I have to tell you, in the whole tax code, I'll tell you, the corporate rate is like the crown jewels of the tax code, in the sense that its impact on jobs and paychecks and competitiveness and innovation can't be matched. And I call it a crown jewel, Chairman, because it's one of those jewels that no matter what setting you put it in, it gets better. So you put it in that research and development, that expensing, the international tax provisions, you link that low corporate rate to those provisions, they all perform better. And it's been a key reason why we've seen the growth, especially in paychecks, as a result of that. And I think, starting into this conversation where people didn't know where the corporate rate would go, they didn't know that you were pondering some very important improvements on the international tax area. And then the permanency, restoring those three business provisions, those are incredibly vital to the U.S. economy. And again, a reason why my prediction is we're not going to see, thanks to your work, you're not going to see more inversions in the future, because you made it even more difficult to justify moving operations overseas. You made it much easier and a greater incentive to make the U.S. the global hub for manufacturing, for intellectual property, for innovation, for AI. And so I just want to, having worked with you in TCJA, I would like to personally thank you for your leadership. I know exactly how hard this is. I know the quality of the members you worked with to deliver, not just on time, but ahead of time, and the certainty you created. So personally, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have the hardest working, best team in all of
No
Congress
doubt.
that was able to help deliver the biggest tax cut in U.S. history. One of our primary goals in enacting the working families tax cuts was making as many of the reforms as possible permanent. And we succeeded, including making permanent key pro-growth policies like the 100% expensing, the immediate and R&D expensing, the deduction for interest expense, the 20% small business deduction, and a slate of international tax policies. These policies and others are expected to protect or create 7 million small business jobs and spur more investment in manufacturing right here in the United States. Ms. Webb, why is permanency within our tax code so important, not just for individuals who must plan and save for their family's future, but for American businesses to invest here at home? And how does that permanency benefit the U.S. in the global economic competition? And what else should policymakers be considering to help ensure U.S. businesses are even more competitive in the future?
Thank you for that question. I think Sylvamo is in a very capital-intensive industry. We make paper. In order to make paper, you have to have big manufacturing facilities with lots of equipment. And we recently announced an almost $150 million investment in our South Carolina facility. Well, that investment requires a lot of planning and a lot of equipment. The ability to plan for the future really depends on having a predictable and stable tax environment. New investments like these can take years to plan. And the new equipment that we need for our facilities, well, we can't just go down to our local Home Depot and purchase it off the shelf. It takes years for this equipment to be manufactured. So these investments take time to plan and to be implemented. Therefore, that stability is crucial. And having that stability helps us to compete on that international level because we can make future decisions about what investments we need and how we can best fund those investments.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.